produce histograms to model some data, see what sort of distribution it is, and then choose a distribution. Here we're focused on the normal distribution. This comes from a super video by the Metal Math Project, the idea for shoplifting data, which we'll look at later, and that's mathematics and economics teaching and learning. So I've got the data here. Quick way, Control Shift and the down arrow, and that will go to the bottom of whatever column of data I've got there without me having to do very much. 731 is the last row. We started on row 2. 731, take 2, 729, add 1 because it's inclusive. Control C that, so we know there's 730 pieces of data. So that was Shift and Control with the down arrow. This is Autograph 3.3. Autograph does this quite a bit more easily than GeoGebra. Also explain it in GeoGebra later. And so for this sort of stats, it's simpler for students to use Autograph. I'm going to click on the 1D stats page because we're putting in statistics. I'm going to enter my data. So data up the top here, you can see me in the left, and enter raw data. This is raw data. I'm going to group it, but it's not currently grouped. So if I just go back there, you can see actually if I select there, I can enter my label at the same time, and that's a really helpful function. So again, Control Shift and the up arrow next to end and home takes you right back to the top of an Excel sheet, which is also really helpful. Do you see I also got the label in there, loss per week, and that was important because then when I paste it in here, Control V to paste, it becomes my title, and there's these two little check boxes. I can use that now. That title is my column header for the data set, so I know which data is which, and I can also use it as my x-axis label. Really efficient options. Great, okay. And I know the sample size is actually 730, so I can change that there if I like. That's 730 pieces of data. Okay. So nothing happens. That's always the case in Autograph until you tell it to do something, and you do that by right-clicking on the graph page. So anywhere on the graph page, I right-click, and everything I can do with that data comes up. Now, have a quick think. Why can't I do a histogram? Why is it not offering me that option? Yep, it's not group data. So I'm going to group the data. I'm going to allow Autograph to do that automatically. Great. I don't really mind what width it uses at the moment. Lots of options here. You can play around with those. Okay. And now, because I've grouped that data, when I right click, sure enough, there's the histogram and the cumulative frequency, etc., etc. So histogram is what we want. And the important point here is I want to then also superimpose a normal distribution. So I don't want the frequencies because that's going to go up to like, I don't know, 200 odd. And a normal distribution obviously is probability, so it's all less than 1. So I want a frequency densities, and I want to divide that by n, which I told it was 730, the capital N there. Let's just put that in, 1 divided by n. Or you can just type in 1 divided by the total number of your sample, but we've already defined it, so it shouldn't be necessary. I want to draw the histogram. I don't need the frequency polygon in. Could have that nice additional, but I don't need it. And it's plotting up rather than plotting down. Okay. Great. And then the really nice thing in Autograph, as always, is if there's anything you can vary, there's the lightning bolt that lights up. Instead of being grayed out, it lights up. And that's telling me that I can vary the class widths. And that's exactly what we want to do. It doesn't look that normal at the moment. And we talk to students about, well, okay, why might that be? Can it look normal if we reduce the class widths, if we increase the class widths? And they can play around with that and have a think and see what helps us to better see what's happening. I'm going to go to here, and they can also see it when it's not normal. Lots of questions you can ask. Great, so we've got our histogram that represents the losses per week in UK pounds of a shop. And it looks like there's an average there of about 250-ish. So now I want to impose data, a probability distribution to fit that so that I can calculate probabilities. So I'm going to, and that's really what the shop's interested in, what are my chances of losing over 250, because I know a surveillance equipment's going to cost me X amount of money, and if I'm losing Y amount of money per week, then it's worth investing. If not, it's not worth investing in the surveillance equipment because it's more expensive than what I'm losing. They're the sort of real decisions that a shop's going to have to make, and as state-of-the-art new surveillance equipment comes in, they're going to have to reassess. I want a normal distribution, okay. I'm going to make that 250 because it looks about 250. Standard deviation looks about 30-ish, and okay. You could also just fit to data as well. So rather than you entering it, you can just fit to data and Autograph will automatically decide what suits your data. But we want students to play around and think about their maths, so we don't want the computers to do that for them. Great, so there it is, and that's a bit of a high peak. So now we want to start automating, and sure enough, there's our lightning bolt again. Great. So when we click on the lightning bolt, let me just select the curve, sorry, it's gone black, so I know it's selected, and now I can adjust my median, so I can make that more, I can make that less, and in particular we think it's a bit high, so actually what I think I need to vary is the standard deviation. If I was wanted to refine that further, I can change the steps. So instead of changing in whole units, it's just going to go up by 0.1 every time. You can see that lovely fit. And then once we've done all of that, the real maths really coming into its own here for students to appreciate the applications is I'm going to say, okay, well, I need to get an idea of when is this going to create different probabilities. So if I right click again, and I can go to probability calculations here, so probability calculations, and I'm going to say I want to know, okay, how often is it going to be over £300, because at £300 that's starting to be worth my while to check into and buy some surveillance equipment, and I'm going to make the upper limit, I could make that just really big off the screen, so let's say 1000, that's more than enough. And we talk about standard deviations and the small percentages that are the extremes, and so everyone's convinced that's more than enough. Okay, lovely, and there's my probability nicely shaded in the purple there, and if I go to, you can see the probability displayed down here, but I'd like a bigger box than that, so I'm going to go to view and the second status box, which is the one at the top. Great, and now I can see my probabilities, and then a really nice feature, so that's a 9.7% chance, and for me maybe it was a cut-off point was 10% chance of that, so I'm happy to absorb the cost for now. And then what you can do is these yellow diamonds at the bottom here, I can drag those upper and lower limits, so obviously I can't see the top one because it's 1000, but I can see, okay, it's 4%. If I made that about 200 and what's that, 200, and I'd get more detail in my axes, I could see that's probably about 260, 270, there's a 38%. That's what you're going to do. Over to you.